Hello and welcome to Imp's AEW Adventures podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Help the network out by leaving us a 5-star review, give a donation directly through Ed Circle, and become one of the amazing community by joining the Social Suplex Discord. A link is in the description. Read the Social Suplex newsletter. Shout out to Trish and Tim as always, and to every person who's contributed so far. Listen to the other top-notch shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network: One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, Trish and Sarah, Tunnel Talk, Soundbound's AEW Match Guide, and joking around. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and this is your quick look back at the AEW week that was. 30 minutes of the calm before the storm, the week before All In, the week before Wembley. Penultimate lead-in shows from Baltimore, Maryland and Reading, Pennsylvania. I didn't know there was a Reading in Pennsylvania, but it makes sense because all the places in England, they just went over there and just made up their own Reading. It makes sense. But this is the week before Wembley, the week before all the stuff happens. So this time next week, I will just be talking about the Wembley show, because the first time I covered it, I did talk about Glasgow beforehand, before then going to All In, and it was just a bit much. It was a lot to cover both of those in one show, so I just think for my format it's too much. Even just like a quick blocking through is like, it doesn't really quite work for my format. So in regards to this show, this is the go-home show on the Imp's AEW Adventures. And I won't say that my interest is waning or anything, or it's not like with another company where it feels like we're treading water. There's none of that. But I would say that it doesn't really feel like it's doing the best job of really getting me excited for All In. It's odd. They've managed to get me invested and interested without the excited part, and maybe that will just come with the Glasgow shows on the week off. We just really amp it up, deliver an exciting show. AEW doesn't typically save a lot of building final angle excitement for the week before the show. They'll put on an incredible wrestling show. It's normally a very exciting week in regards of content of wrestling, but I'm not expecting any additional angles to try and get me excited for it. They've done their job at this point. It feels like they are going to meet the expectations. They're going to meet the setup. So I think Wembley's currently set up for about 45,000, and it looks like they're going to break the 40,000 and get within the realm of it, so congratulations. Also, to draw the number that they have for Wembley, it's still incredibly impressive. For me, meeting anything close to what they got last time is incredibly impressive, because I would just assume it would be down, but if you're running the same stadium 3 out of 4 years, you would just expect a downward trajectory, but it feels like they're going to meet what they did last time, which is really impressive. But anyway, let's talk about this week's shows, because it is a little bit of the calm before the storm. There's a reason I kind of delved into Wembley, because that's what's important right now. That's what everybody's talking about. That's what everything's building towards. There'll be lots to talk about over the next week, but I'm recording this on a day where there's not that much. It's just what happened on these shows. So let's just blast into it. Now, a little calm moment. First, to Dynamite from Baltimore, Maryland, and a good laugh to start us off with Excalibur's opening run through all over the place. Was it the Elite? Was it Ospreay? Was it Kenny and Ospreay having a talk? One of those things certainly was going to open the show. I'm not sure Excalibur knew which one it was going to be. To be fair, there must have just been something in the air, something in the water regarding their commentators this week, because Tony Schiavone also had a bit of a 10-minute wobble. Was it? Happens to everybody. There's a 10-minute period in the match where you just can't pass for shit. You can't do anything. You just need to get through it, shake it off, and do a little bit of a reset. There's something in the water where both of their lead announcers just had a 10-minute wobble. Both of them just going, I don't know what's going on. Save me, other people. Luckily, Schiavone was on with Ian Riccaboni on Collision, so he's able to jump in and save. Ian Riccaboni seemed to more just laugh at him, which made me laugh. Schiavone had grumpy, serious face, being like, I'm going to keep mucking it up, while Ian Riccaboni was just laughing. I like Ian Riccaboni's energy. Anyway, let's jump over to the thing that actually opened the show, and that was the United Empire, Will Ospreay and his friends versus Brian Cage, Rocky Romero, Lance Archer of the Don Callis family.
Well, maybe not. Early celebration from Romero, cut short by the hidden blade. Wow.
William called upon his New Japan friends, but really I was just here for Lance Archer versus Henare, big beefy boys on the plate, yes, nom nom nom. Akira got to show off what he can do, enjoyed his little senton popped off Will's shoulders, later got to moonsault outside onto a pile of lads. Given it's me, I also cheered for Henare just jumping in and headbutting a fecker. I really enjoyed him just doing that in this match. Good laugh at Rocky repeating his Kenny Omega spot, sliding to the corner and rolling his shoulders to the camera and hidden blade, 1, 2, 3. Hilarious long-term arc for Rocky Romero as Asuka refuses to learn the lesson, and immediately on social media it got clips edited together with the Kenny Omega one and this one. Sure, you could call it a story it's meant to be for Will Ospreay Kenny Omega, but no, it's the Rocky Romero arc. Next time he does it, the third time, he's gonna realise it's gonna happen. I mean, really, it's better if he just never learns and he keeps getting rocked by it. He's not the kind of character that needs an actual arc to overcome. But my main note for this one is a lot of the story to do with William Ospreay, with his whole thing with the Death Riders and when he left the Death Riders, was kind of what Don Callis was hitting on. I was like, well, you don't even have those friends anymore. And bringing the United Empire for me somewhat muddies the messaging of that, because Will Ospreay does have friends, he just doesn't have friends in AEW all the time because they're busy in New Japan. So when Don Callis is like, we haven't got these people to protect you, you're now on your own, you've got to prove yourself, but then he just calls over these other friends from a different place and they come and help him. It somewhat for me defeats a lot of the purpose of breaking away from the Death Riders. It does serve a long-term purpose because we are building to a Will Ospreay, Callum Newman clash at some point, maybe in time for our Wrestle Kingdom. This keeps that spinning a little bit, just bring the United Empire over, just reminding you of that relationship. It feels like that's building to a match which isn't going to be in AEW. I'm a massive fan of AEW recognising that other places exist and sometimes those other places just bleed into the show. We've just been through it with Mexico because we've done the show in Arena Mexico. Suddenly you got all of this bleeding CMLL stuff into the product. So this was just like a casual New Japan bleed through, but for me it muddied a little bit the story they're telling with Will Ospreay departing from the Death Riders, not really allying with Kenny, but he's amping up to do this road alone. Mainly because outside of this night, I'm not expecting any United Empire showing at all at Wembley or anything. I don't feel like it's going to play any relevancy. You're just going to get your straight up singles match. The bit I understand is getting these guys, like these wins on their telly on the road too. That bit makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I'm just thinking maybe there is a different way, maybe it's just a singles match or something where you keep that messaging like nice and simple. I guess my other critique as well is Jon Moxley just going into the Continental Cup thing and just not being a part of it when he was one of the most interesting parts of this story. And I said weeks ago that tackling this story from 3 different points of view was going to be the interesting way to tell this story. And it felt like from minute one we were telling it from Jon Moxley's point of view about both Kenny and Will Ospreay. And they used his framing to then tell their own story. And I wasn't like super expecting them to then go through each individual person. I just personally thought, that could be really interesting if you do it that way, because we started on Moxley, he's not in the match, and then you go from Kenny to Will to da-da-da. Each person gets to say their piece. We have kind of done that, but removing the Jon Moxley element, it's taken away an absolutely huge, interesting part of this story. And I don't know if that's something that's kind of sending Will a little bit into that, feeling a bit like a dickhead. But I personally, I want my wrestlers to not feel like the greatest people in the world at times. I said last week, I don't want them to be the kings of virtue or anything like that. I want them to be complicated humans. And then Will Ospreay trying to go what he's going for. For me, clashing up against interesting. Actually, before we get into I've been diving into the character bits a little bit. There was a sit-down interview with Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. But I feel like it's a long shot given my listening demographic. But if any of you have watched a British boxing sit-down interview before their big shows, this is a lot of how it's done. Black background, interview person, then you got boxers either side of a small table, all blacked out, whatever. And they just sit down and they have a chat. It's closer to this. It's a lot less of a orchestrated interview. It's not like UFC where they have to try and get them to really shout at it. Or like in America where it feels like they're up on the stage. Then you often do this type of thing, less in a sit down and more in a weigh-in kind of environment. But sometimes in boxing, they'll literally just sit down in this dark room and just talk at each other, bring up their past, ping up their training. A lot of how kind of this way was done. So in terms of like the production of this reminded me of that a lot. And maybe I'm picking up on British ways of doing things just because they've already included some of those notes for Wembley specifically. But obviously the other note is Stone Cold versus The Rock. Just outside of the show happening, they do that sit-down interview and that really elevates the product. And I feel like this feud has been wobbling a little bit. Not coincidentally since the Jon Moxley kind of removal. He got a lot more on the focus of the Kenny Omega character than the Will Ospreay character. But I felt like for me this sorted out quite a bit. The little bit of a messy few weeks we've had. It straightened that out. It's a shame it was needed to straighten it out. But I'm personally glad that they did this. Even if the live crowd was just losing interest, seemingly just booing a little bit when they realised someone else was about to continue talking. Like, very different crowd compared to WWE, this AEW crowd. We got a lengthy character promo with lots of good stuff in it, but they're there to see a wrestling show, so you get a little bit... But also for me, this is a great example of you don't need to have a live crowd audio for everything. The Mercedes and Willow doing their online video Zoom call, that thing, that was great having the live crowd there. Absolutely works perfectly. Willow is so good at getting the crowd on her side as well. That's the much better environment to do it in. This, the quiet sit down, I don't want any live crowd noise for this. That is surely the one environment you don't want it, because they're talking quietly, they're monologuing, they're whatever. You don't want people heckling, trying to get chants over, whatever, if they're doing that sort of thing. So just a weird little production note where they have been inserting a lot more crowd noise into their backstage stuff, because they didn't used to do that all the time. They didn't always used to mix it in. But I think we've got 2 promos tonight which are great examples of which one you do the live crowd mixing for and which one you just completely cut it out. But we didn't waste time. There was Takeshita making his return, and then we went straight into this segment. Words of respect between them to start off with, but we slowly degraded into animosity. Kenny talked about being the bigger, better draw. He's the guy New Japan called on to draw tickets, not Will. Temporarily dove into who had COVID worse, but we got back on track. I've been going back and forth since I've watched this whether the COVID diversion was something that was super necessary for it. It definitely gave a perspective to Will's character that does add to why he's just so driven to do this. It absolutely doesn't work in being like, well, I had COVID this bad, well, I had COVID that bad. Like, it doesn't work in that way, but in terms of like what it means for Will's character, what it's saying for him, him. For me, it's more important with the way that it mirrors against Kenny, because Kenny's delivering a lot of, so what? Like, we've all been through hardships, we've all been through da-da-da. Whilst Will Ospreay is just like pure adrenaline, pure emotion, pretty much like so much of what Jon Moxley was trying to teach him. But Will is still digging from that emotional place. Will using it to talk about how that experience forged him completely different to the likes of Kenny. Kenny, this absolutely iconic, legendary figure for New Japan Pro Wrestling. When Will Ospreay took that mantle, it was a completely different world, everything shut down. And in that same period, where Will was performing to silent Japanese fans, Kenny was a title belt collector, AEW Gold, IWGP Gold, TNA Gold, AAA Gold, and that brought us to their past matches finally. Will's forehead still bears the Wrestle Kingdom scar, but the mental weight of his win over Kenny not meaning anything at Forbidden Door is the heavier on him. The Don Callis asterisk hanging over the result. Will's feeling the pressure of no Brit ever having won American Gold in their home country. Kenny's in slow talking villain mode. He's getting the cleaner. He's getting Will Ospreay is getting exactly what he asked for. He wanted the best King of Wrestling, Kenny Omega, and that version was the cleaner. Kenny respects Will Ospreay, but when Will loses, he's sure the man's mum will still be proud. Brought up his son as well, and that's the bit where Will snaps. And this would just be a nice little note to have like some form of Jon Moxley, because it's a little repetition of what everything Jon Moxley was saying. Will is still letting his emotions lead him, and Kenny Omega knows that. Sure, on the night we would like to see him overcome this stuff, but in this build, all of the teachings of Jon Moxley, it feels like Will is like on the verge of giving in to all of those urges that Jon Moxley was trying to train him against. And knowing Kenny, we're going to see some form of like bubbling of that in the match itself, and then you get to see Will overcome it in the match. A lot of their stories can happen in the ring because they're a wrestling focused company. But I wouldn't say I came out of this interview thing thinking, oh, one of these guys is definitely the one to get behind. They both came out feeling like dickheads, which is a bit weird when I then go online and the people are, oh, Kenny definitely came out the better. I don't think either really did. They both came out looking like a bit like knobs. Will Ospreay a bit whiny or whatever. Anyway, on to the other notes. Kazuchika Okada backstage with Renee. He always knew about the importance of family, unlike Takeshita. Testing Kyle now, teasing with the expectation that if he wins, then the Aussie will raise his hand, how all happy for him. And this wasn't setting up anything for later. Straight into Giovanni in the ring to interview the international champion. Baltimore all happy to cheer for Fletcher, but had none of Don Callis. The man wasn't even there and got fucked Don Callis. Kyle shot back right at Kazu with the same expectation of raising his hand in victory, but they have one thing in common, their absolute hatred for Takeshita. And oh look at that, the G1's over and Takeshita's name is in their mouths again. Out he comes, makes his return, tops off, time for a brawl. Wrestling's not gay at all. Blue Thunder Bomb, oh so beautiful. Less of a brawl, instead teased us with an actual flow of wrestling. Reverse Rana, raging fire and all. An explosive reminder of Takeshita's offense. Loud chants for the returning man when he raised the title. Okada not anywhere to be seen in this segment. Instead, Takeshita just makes the beat down and gets the extra Santol. Brawling Birds, all cartoonishly British, talking pints and beating in it. Promised to deliver a good brawl for the drunk English fans in Wembley. Two fingers blowing raspberries. Hope you Americans like this. Is that enough British for you? Is that enough? Alright, matey, gonna beat you up down pub. Is it British enough for you? MJF's Spanish translator is back. I enjoyed the Jonathan Cruz bit last time. I don't think, being on social media, it didn't look like anybody had remembered. They've already done this before, and I enjoy it every time Jonathan Cruz does this a little bit. He ragged on Andrade on behalf of Max. He won't win, and he's not even a real Latino man. Andrade, like, come on, man. I know. Like, I would beat your ass myself. And of course Andrade was there. I love Justin Roberts' announcing of it. Like, this is now a contest. Snap, boot spinning elbow, the DM win. El Idolo with the mic after, got a moment, and the home audio for Max started playing way before the correct timing. A complete AEW fuck up. Played the video at the correct time though. In his hot tub with his Triple B under the glorious Long Island sun. A promise to make Andrade pay for messing with the one true champion. So Andrade just beat up Cruz instead. How you know, but aggressive. And I talked about this earlier, but Mercedes and Willow, 3-screen Zoom call picture talk with Renee. You've got a lot to say now in different rooms, you dumb bitch. Seemingly Mercedes has realised that same thing as Tekla, just calling people dumb bitches. The crowd love it. They're like trying to be all serious and calling somebody a bitch straight up, but if you call someone a dumb bitch, the crowd cheer, they love it. And now this was the talkie segment to have the crowd audio for. Having the crowd show their love for Willow is a far better use for it. Like over Will and Kenny's quiet chinwag in a dark room. It just doesn't tonally fit at all. Mercedes took Willow's presence as personal affronts, winding back to their match in New Japan where Mercedes had her serious injury. So well tying all the character stuff together, saying, when I got my injury, you were smiling, and Mercedes calling Willow a bully because of that. Truly believes that all of this smiling stuff is fake. But on top of that, Willow was TBS champion when Mercedes finally arrived in AEW. Then the same woman won it off her, and now here she is again. Amped each other up into a brawl out into the arena. Earrings off, and they both exited their pictures, and we got a black shirt security pull apart. In the end, Mercedes up the ramp with Willow smiling at her from the ring. For me, Mercedes and Willow are hitting every miss Kenny and Will are making. Every time I'm a bit critical of their feud, Mercedes and Willow Willow would deliver something which is like, this is the character that works so well for me. And straight into a match I really enjoyed. My World versus Hikaru Shida versus Persephone versus Chris Statlander. Just a fun, chaotic four-way with no downtime whatsoever. Brought to you by Lanterns on HBO Max. Like James Gunn, I swear I'll watch it eventually. I'm going to get around to it. It's just not at the top of my list. I'm going to get to it. I'm not somebody who's like jumping to watch the superhero stuff anymore. I don't know the last time I went to the cinema to watch a Marvel film. Completely disengaged. Bubbled all fine, chaotic four-person fun with no one really holding momentum before the break, just how I like it. None of that two people down two in the ring shit. And if there is, it's for like 30 seconds max before someone else is jumping in. Once back, Big Stat was finally able to use her muscles to send both villains away into a wee-minute dance with Maher till Shida crossbodied back in. This is awesome chant thanks to Stat kipping up out of Shida's thigh trap and bam, spear from Persephone. I thought the camera cut for it was great. Stat strike, discus lariat, high, stack arses to camera to create a nice flat surface for Maher World to senton onto both backs from off camera. Maher and Stat flowed after, similar to their first flow with Chris lifting all big and strong without actually hitting anything. Lifted up, World rolled back and through into a sudden three. Really exciting match, really fun, just an absolute blast. But it doesn't really feel like there's any direction for Wembley. Like, I'm happy to see us not just switch right back to plan B, Stat versus Shida for the show. But it does feel like there isn't anything for the women's match. And last week I was like, what if you can only have 2 women's matches per show for some weird reason? Then I guess it's going to be the Brawling Birds winning their titles. There is nothing for this title set up for Wembley. There'll be something on the pre-show, fly them over, but they've got nothing for the main show, which is like, could do a bit better. It kind of sucks. Not that I'm complaining that Wembley's going to be like not long enough already. It just feels like this division has quite a lot of talent in it. My World was a good champion to shake things up, but she's not going to get that big moment on the big stage. Later in the show, Maya did get a moment with Renee. Willow joined her, fulfilling her promise to give Maya World the first shot at her Women's World Championship. Like they suddenly remembered, oh shit, yeah, that was a piece of dialogue we said, wasn't it? I'm perfectly down for the logic of things are circumstances to change, but Willow was a woman of her word, and we got that match on Collision. Right, now on to the Continental Challenge Cup stuff. Quarterfinals, first Jay White versus John Moxley. A bad draw for the New Zealand firearm fellow, but the atmosphere was great. We got an AEW chant in the beat before the bell, so at least Jay White could take home that he was well liked in Maryland. But they had one hell of a telly vessel. It's kind of what I mean, where if I'm a little bit down like a promo segment or whatever, it's not the end of the world, because now suddenly I've had 2 back-to-back matches that I had a great time with. Really nice to watch a crowd like this after last week's Las Vegas lull, and hilarious to hear that there were actually TKO representatives in the crowd. In the same show there was the Sasha come home. It was like, oh, hilarious that got confirmed. High-flying Jay White Rana. A kind this is awesome after they tussled ringside and both ran clotheslines into each other. I class that as we are invested in what is happening, rather than, oh my god, it just elevated and lifted us up into this chant. It's like, no, you were having a good time. Hey, do it for the WWE fans when they do it. I'm going to do it for the promotion where I'm actually enjoying the product. If you chant and this is awesome when you're just having a good time, that's not this is awesome. That's this is a good time. Don't chant it at that point. They got there. They got to that point of the this is awesome, but he chanted it too early. Nay, Blade Runner, that final blow fought off by Mox, but Jay White was so swish into a Yuji Nagata stretch. They just called the Nagata stretch, I can't remember. It's been years since I watched Yuji Nagata, but it was a stretch that I'm sure Mox would be proud of. Mox with his own injury to set up, the whole putting it back into the socket cell as he amped himself back up after his dive. Suplex after suplex from Jay, even Mox grounding him with a bulldog choke resulted in another suplex. And woof, the super duper superplex landed Mox on his lower half and Jay's upper, ouch. The closest of roll up near falls. Fans totally bought Jay rolling back through Mox's attempted sleeper. Blade Runner, biggest pop of the match so far, so successfully got the crowd amped for a Jay White win. And I said so far because White kicking out of the paradigm shift got an enormous reaction. Baltimore buzzing, not even upset their guy lost in the end. Sleeper finally locked in and choked the Kiwi out. Mox and Marina hung about for a really long time afterwards. Then we found out why we were shown Carl and Cassidy watching backstage before this match. The dogs made the jump, conglomeration save, which set up our Gabe Kidd return. Roddy couldn't save the day. Brodido and Hangman, like what a flow right into the 6-man Wembley setup. Ricochet on out after all Hanger's got to do was insult Finley's boots. Totally down for Finley doing his best to shop around for the ugliest cowboy boots he could find. Page made it clear that he and Brodido will be wrestling at Wembley. If there is anyone who wants a shot, then meet us under the Wembley Arch, because your trio's champions will be waiting. Swerve's presence felt even though he wasn't there. Later we got a backstage Swerve segment. Did you say anyone for those titles? Don't say it if you don't mean it. And then on Collision we got like 3 different teams being like, oh yeah, we'll be there. So are we just going to have like a 21-man, 7-team clusterfuck? Loads of things. And that's where we're debuting the New Day? Feels like it's going to be slightly difficult to paint Swerve and his new friends as absolute killers if it's a heavy multi-man chaotic thing like this. Like, is it just going to be first to a pinfall with all these teams there? Is it a trios gauntlet of sorts? Are you going to do an impromptu ladder match? Like, what are you going to do? All they've said is, we're going to be there. It's an open challenge. Everybody turn up. Like, what are we getting? It feels like a really weird environment to try and debut a new killer act. Because I love the idea of putting a New Day with Swerve Strickland so that they can be completely different characters than they were in WWE. Because they did that heel turn, which they had nothing for, so we never actually got to see what Kofi and Xavier's plan was for it. Like, what was their plan for those characters? Because we never got to see the follow-through. Amazing angle to turn them heel. Then they were doing like great little bits during that Netflix debut era where they weren't on the actual show, but they would do great promo segments complaining about it, and it felt like a very natural thing to then bleed that into the show. And they never did, really. They gave them the tag title so they could do the sponsored match for the Viking stuff at WrestleMania in the worst match of that weekend. But it was like such a shame that they did such a great angle and they had zero plans to follow it up. So I am still hungry for the actual heel New Day. It felt like we didn't really get it in WWE, and I'm all for them having a much more dangerous killer vibe if they align with Swerve. That's partly why I'm super interested. Getting to deliver on a promise that wasn't fulfilled. It feels like the right environment for them. The match, though, feels weird to make such a big debut in I called it a clusterfuck, but it's just like there's going to be a chaos of just so many other guys out there. Like, how do you give it focus? There might be a way. Like, how do you also give it focus without taking half an hour to play out a match with so many guys? I mean, it's AEW. You just give them half an hour. Screw how late people get home when I could vote off. Actually, no, what we're talking about. It's Wembley. You have a hard out. You can't waste time on this. Anyway, sticking around with the Continental Challenge Cup, Nigel McGuinness versus Hechicero. Battle of the Magicians. Nige with already a heavy limp on his left leg after hurting his ankle against Shibata. They didn't have him on commentary for Collision either, saying that he's on a reduced flight. Taz promised us the Magic Fireman would catch himself a heel hook. Fair to say Hechicero did more than that, with the majority of his offense very much focused on that ankle. McGuinness on defense for the majority, teased the Tower of London, but then right back into Hechicero magic times. The CMLL champion right back to that heel every time he could. The match completely flipped the moment the Mexican's charge ran straight into an English knee. Turned inside out off the ropes too. Last chancery headlock choke in deep and just held it till the man faded. McGuinness wins, hurty foot and all. No weight on it as he hobbled to the back aided by the docs. And what I like about the way this tournament's been structured is still, whenever I see people talking about this in the different forums, seeing people still throwing out the predictions for what's going to happen, I thought it was way too predictable that it was going to be Jon Moxley, Nigel McGuinness. So it kind of just been getting through the matches, getting through the rounds till we get to that final match. But seeing how other people are calling their final, maybe it's not as predictable as I thought it was. Because there's still such a strong momentum of Mox is the predictable part, and then the other name has just been all over the place. And since round one, I was like, but it's Nigel. It feels like it's blatantly Nigel. But clearly, this structure must work if people are out there predicting all sorts of different finalists. So it's felt blatant to me, but I guess they're doing something right if it's not predictable for others. And I'm not saying predictable is always bad. The semi-final, we're building up to a big spot for Big Nige with his hurty ankle. And really, I guess the only matches in this tournament I've really enjoyed have been the Jon Moxley ones. He's had two absolute wars. And the others have been like fine and good enough telly stuff, but I haven't been like massively invested in them. But part of me's like, I'm not going to go playing too much. It's given the TV when it would have just been maybe some getting through it momentum. It's given us like something to get behind, a tournament to follow. And every Jon Moxley match has been absolute fire. And if that's the end result, like another fire Jon Moxley match, I'm not going to complain too much. Kevin Knight and Darby Allin. After a quick video recap of Darby's words from the Collision video, Tony Schiavone was in the ring again to talk with Kevin Knight. Got the TNT champion's opinion on the match being falls count anywhere. He's got answers for Darby Allin. I'm not a young boy anymore. I'm a grown-ass man. A new nickname for Josh Smith just dropped. Grown-ass man, Joshua Smith. Darby came out onto the stage, posed, bang bang, boom, flash, bang bang. Pyro went off at him. That's how I saw it. I know some people are like, oh my god, I can't believe he did a stunt like that. And I'm just like, for me, it's just so silly. I always find the pyro explosion stuff really silly, and they always sell it as super serious. For me, not helped at all by the commentator being like, oh, like, was that an accident or did he do it? It's like, that's just dumb. That's like, for me, that's a dumb level of commentary. I'll say that AEW doesn't treat its audience as dumb as WWE does. It doesn't dumb down its product as much as WWE does, with like the overproduction, over-explaining. But this was definitely like an overplay of the situation. Like in this moment, the commentators felt dumb. Which makes the overall product felt dumb. Like, what do you mean you're questioning whether or was that an accident or a Kevin Knight jump? That just makes everything feel dumb. But maybe I've watched enough wrestling to just expect it. Hence why the power goes off and I write it down as bang, bang, boom, flash, bang. Like, I'm not taking it seriously at all. But yeah, so silly. But in the context of the actual match they're doing, I love it. Like, you better deliver explosions in Wembley now, Tony. Coast to coast dropkick to send us off to the UK. Sold us super serious, net brace and all. Even the previously mentioned Steve Borden out to play the role he was born for, Sting's son. Top Knight getting jumped by Dobby backstage as well later. And the best part was Smoke completely filled the arena after the match and the crowd couldn't fucking see anything. Pretty certain during the backstage dip with Steve Borden and Kevin Knight, the crowd was chanting, "We can't see." So, oh, brilliant. Oh, I see you, Tony. Emulating ye oldie London smog. Gotta get your wrestlers acclimatized ahead of time. I get you. And the main event within the smog, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the Elite versus El Clone, Mark Davies and Jake Doyle of the Don Callis family. Amidst the fog in limited vision, one more main event trios dance with Kenny as champion before he doth depart the title. O'Connor is just so cool at times, and a tasty serving of beef clobber via Davies and Doyle. Baltimore was so excited to be watching the Elite do their thing. In overtime, an AEW show overran? Crazy, never. All the hits, you can't escape with the Bucks doing their dives at the same time. Dives outside with Kenny, then nailing the V-trigger. Stiff knees rock, super kicks layout, a pure trios party main event. Champion Kenny with the one-winged angel victory. I'm not going to blow through the momentum or different things of this match. It was your Elite party tag. It very much felt like doing all the best hits. But it's what came after that was the real finale. Don Callis, lowest rung chumps made the jump. Cope and Christian the save on behalf of the Bucks. Beaten, but the last man there, commentary set up a patented show-ending Kenny Omega speech. When Will Ospreay, all heated, was having none of that. Kenny had promised further words before the match, but completely backed out of it when it came to the moment. Called out security, but kept chatting shit. Will all amped up, ran in feeling that emotion. The second security held him back. V-trigger. Table set up during the Don Callis beatdown. Instead, ended the show with Will crashing through it via one-winged angel. Kenny Omega doing a weird get a cackly laugh like he's turned full cleaner. I'm not saying that this was like a Kenny Omega dark heel turn or anything, but it felt like this is him having finally reached cleaner Kenny Omega. He's willing to do anything to get that win. But also it's a nice showing of Will's emotions getting the better of him yet again. Like a careful what you wish for moment. That you wanted the cleaner, now you're going to get it, and you're still not in control of your emotions in spite of everything you've been through. All a lovely setup for him in the moment to be able to do it. But it's not just that he couldn't hit his friend, it's that he's also still not controlling his emotions. I don't want my main event characters to be boring goody heroes. I like stuff like this. Like every good guy champion AEW has quite a lot of negative traits. And for me that just makes them far better. So I thought this was a great note to finish the show on, even though I've been wobbling on this feud for the past couple of weeks. At least for me this was a great note to send us off into Wembley week on. And the little follow-up that Will Ospreay had with Nigel on Collision is also like a little echo of this. This was like one more final moment before we end up in Glasgow. Anyway, let's jump over to Collision in a show that never overruns. A nice tight 150 to 2 hours. Nice and tight. Live from Reading, Pennsylvania. Before we get into it, in a sucky situation, Eddie Kingston hurt and taken out of the tournament. So, nay heated rematch with Claudio. But we still got our Continental Tournament times with 2 inter-faction matches and one hell of a champion versus champion women's main event. So let's jump on over to Collision, starting off with the Continental Challenge Cup quarterfinal. Orange Cassidy versus Kyle O'Reilly.
Kyle rolls him over, and he goes back to the end. Oh, and he's run to the end. And that's it. Kyle O'Reilly gets the win. Here's your winner.
Poor Kyle and Cassidy hat drawn into wrestling their friends every time. O'Reilly tried his hold and ground wrestling, but cheeky Orange Cassidy had wiggles and shimmies of escape every time. A first half of Kyle dancing his friend's silly, playful tune started out as a technical, scientific match, said Ian Rakabani very kindly. I just read this as like silly fun nonsense almost. Eventually they did have to kick and hit each other at some point. O'Reilly smartly going for the ankle as Cassidy tried to innovate and throw things Kyle's way that he wouldn't expect. A stiff penalty kick probably seemed like a good idea, but when your pal's been working over your ankle for your bit, maybe not Cassidy's wisest move. Kyle not able to stomp on his friend's ankle. He couldn't bring himself to do that violence. But post sneaky Cassidy roll up, he transitioned right back into the ankle lock for the quick submission tap, let go immediately and checked the man was alright. And there's his setup. Big Nige with his massive ankle injury. Suddenly he's in a match with the guy who's got his patented move is the ankle lock. Oh my days. How did this naturally happen? How did we end up in this circumstance? The other match being John Moxley versus Claudio. Maybe we were going to do John Moxley versus Eddie, and this would be where Eddie's little momentum where he has a final match with John Moxley, and that's where this bubbles out. But instead we've got an inter-faction one, and I did enjoy the Death Riders not being entirely happy that they've been forced into this situation. But anyway, I'm already on like other note rambling stuff. Let's just jump right into it. I don't have a lot to say about the Cassidy O'Reilly match. It was as described. Big Nige interviewed after Dynamite. He was getting his ankle checked over by the doctor when Will Ospreay stumbled his way into the pre-recorded segment, turned it into a medical room chinwag in similar wah-wah fashion to his post-show chats with Omega. William hyped Nigel. Nigel gave William a tad extra motivation. Jack Perry with a wee promo with his knife. Challenged Swerve to a match in Glasgow. He was warned to not bring a knife to a Swerve fight, and it looks like he's like, no, I can do it. So I'm all up for Jack getting killed. Swerve did try to warn him. So many trios teams said hello after Hangman's challenge. Like, dogs were doing their shit when Gabe Kidd jumped in with the much needed dose of reality. Like, what is this? What are we doing here? Focus Finley and Connors onto the trios gold. Then Jay White got his own Me, the Guns and My Pants are coming for it. It was a Shane Taylor Promotions versus Bang Bang Gang match, but before that, Shane Taylor, he least threw out the STP name before the Bang Bang Gang's acceptance. There are just so many different trios accepting here. We've got the Hurt Syndicate if they team up with anybody. We've also got Swerve of what he wants. We've got the Demand. We've got the Champions. There were just so many trios teams. It's conglomeration. There's just so much here. That's why I'm like, is this going to just be like a 20-man cluster and then suddenly you've got to build the New Day debuting as well? I don't know how you manage that. Lexi Nair backstage with the conglomeration. Ask Kyle O'Reilly how he's feeling about the Continental Cup. A nothing answer about fighting and whatnot. Switch to Willow and her getting to her own Wembley dream. After her win tonight, she's going to have a big smile on her face. We got a lengthy recap of the Ospreay and Omega story, going through every beat from their first Forbidden Door meeting all the way to Redemption and the paper bag, edited alongside plenty of aerial shots of Wembley and pyro and such. It's a big match on a big stage, don't you know, style of video play. And say that we're 1 week out from the show, I feel like this is really needed. They've talked about their past, they've talked about whatever, but having a video like this is really useful for anyone who's especially just getting into AEW, especially in this period where there's a lot of WWE fans giving it a go. Video packages like this, where there are just going to be fans who don't know what on earth they're talking about. So something like this where, yes, they've been told it, but if you show it them as well, the teacher method, tell them what you're going to teach them it, and then tell them what you've taught them. 5-minute challenge, Divine Dominion versus Jobbers Erica and Tiara. The clock on screen mocked their Wembley opponents doing their shit. 2 birds, 1 stone and all, before the double chokeslam for the win. It's 50-50 whether I remember the name of their finisher, but double chokeslam is the safety. It's too similar to their team name, so I search my brain and half the time their team name is the only thing that comes up. Continental Challenge Cup quarterfinal, Claudio versus Daniel Garcia. Our second faction-on-faction Friendship Cup match of the night. Garcia beat Adam Priest on Ring of Honor to become Eddie Kingston's replacement, and a great camera shot during Claudio's entrance, with Garcia stood ringside in the foreground as Claudio stood high atop the barricade. Sure, it was the second inter-faction bout, but the dynamic was completely different, with a look of worry on young Daniel's face, given what they were about to have to throw at each other. Garcia opted to leg work and tried to chop the Super Swiss tree down. Loved the ad break lead in though, an old couple on the front row laughing their arses off, having a great time as Claudio uppercut charged and violently dumped his stablemate over the barricade. It's just so good. There's something about older wrestling fans, but when they really get into something, it's just really great. Stayed amped to deliver a beating once we were back. Violent uppercuts and stompings in the corner. It's so violent, it amped Garcia up into a dance and fight back. Like, wrestling's so stupid sometimes. You get to say sentences like that. Poor Daniel hurt his ankle landing out a powerbomb though. A little tweak that stopped his sharpshooter from shooting sharp. A weak point flashing bright red for Claudio to aim at whenever he was in danger later. Back and forth charges, Garcia won out and started getting the first offense on every flow. Before Claudio was able to power out or just hit that ankle, Daniel kept going for Cassino's offense, finally hit the neutralizer on the third try, but in spite of all of that effort, it's not his move, so wrestling rules dictate he can't hit it as well. Nay 3 after the sudden Swiss pop-up uppercut, sharpshooter wriggled out of because it's Garcia's move too. Ripped the boot off and bloody hell, Claudio's great one-legged giant swing via the hurty leg. In the beginning of this match, the crowd were chanting for Claudio, but when Garcia kicked out after the swing and the follow-up uppercut, they were fully behind Daniel Garcia. Proof that these two are good at what they do. Garcia struck back and one more uppercut ended that, and a wrench right back on that ankle with the young man tapping. That's when we got our final draw. And yes, oh look at that, the hurt ankle man and the ankle hurting man. And later on we got a segment with the Death Riders all stroppy backstage. I was like, oh, this sucks, everything sucks. Really used to trying to be the guy trying to lift the spirits. And then even Daniel Garcia on his back just complaining that his ankle hurts. Garcia just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is awkward, I can't lift this spirit. That was quite funny. The Hurt Syndicate and Lee Moriarty versus 3 jobbers. A quick, swift beating delivering the hurt to boys half their size. Moriarty left hanging on the apron as Lashley and Benjamin wreaked havoc per their payments agreement. Not colleagues in any fashion, literally just cashing in their check and leaving. Straightjacket lift up and slam to then stretch a fecker out for the win. The Ring of Honor Pure Champion not looking quite as happy with this arrangement as Shane Taylor is. The big man grabbed the mic after and offered an open challenge because they're the greatest trios team. Pew pew pew, it's the Bang Boys. Can I call them that? Is that an allowed nickname? Shane Taylor and the Infantry versus Jay White and the Guns. Explosive Austin Gunn received a lot of praise from Tony, but also a lot of the Infantry stompings. Worked over all through the break, receiver of the Bronco Buster, Take That BBC Till You Die, nursery rhyme sang by Cardi Bravo. And why didn't I realise we'd be seeing all that combined with the Guns Suck It? Surely when they came up for this, oh, they're going to do the BBC thing, then the Guns are going to do a Suck It thing. I'm annoyed I didn't pair those things together. Jay White's hot tag chops just eaten and absorbed by Taylor. Eventually broke down and Bravo tagged in. The Guns big and strong 310 to Yuma on Big Shane Taylor. Blade runner to Bravo for the win. After the match, Jay with the mic. He lost to Max in a big battle, but in addressing Bandido brought up how the Bang Bang Gang never lost those titles going into All In last year. Hangman labelled the trio scene the Wild West, and the Collision Cowboys have answered. When Jedi gets on the mic and does these little promos, the Bang Bang Gang feel like such an overstable, and then they got a great entrance as well. So I'm not against AEW like trying to fit these guys onto the show. It just feels like you're going to be debuting the New Day. Is it just with too much going on, the way you won't really be able to give them focus? There's always the boring answer that the Shane Taylor promotions think they've got the Hurt Syndicate, and then it just turns out someone else has bought them and they get beaten up. I feel like is that what's being set up for Wembley? It's kind of boring. As in, specifically if they're who Swerve has actually got, then that's kind of boring. It could just be like a little angle in the match. I think as long as Swerve's two aren't Bobby Lashley and Benjamin, for me, then it works. It can just be like a little silly moment in the match. And a great way for Lashley and Benjamin to literally get paid without having to do much work. To go out there, do their shit, turn on the Shane Taylor promotions and then leave. Nick Wayne and Tommaso Ciampa versus Commander and Speedball. 21-year-old Nick Wayne, fresh off of his Ring of Honor World Championship loss against Bandido. No rest after making waves in wrestling. The two here got a picture-in-picture with Wayne declaring for the Casino Gauntlet. Bayley and Commander just two logically assumed folk for that match, so they don't need no video package. A wee fast-paced, exciting tag before the main event. Hyped the Casino Gauntlet via Nick Wayne and Commander doing their flights. Sure isn't going to get many complaints from me. I mean, who wins and loses here? It meant literally nothing to me. So why not just throw in people doing all the moves? Ciampa's charging knee to break up a pin was stiff as hell. Wayne and Commander were the legal men for the entire closing stretch. Destroyers, rope walkings and all. Till Ciampa pulled on the man's mask to stop his momentum. Nick Wayne with a Northern Lights bomb thing for the win. I didn't catch what commentary called it, so I get to sound far more nerdy by describing it. just instead of the patented name for it. It's like, well, I'm nerdy enough to be able to describe it. The most filler feeling match throughout the entire week. But if you're going to have a match like that, yeah, just have guys go out there and just do all the shit. So it's impossible to be bored by it. And then we got to the main event, the AEW Women's Championship, Willow Nightingale versus Maya World. Two homegrown black women main eventing collision. They even went to the effort of editing the fancy Wembley graphic to include a Willow or Maya versus Mercedes. Like, World was never going to win, but hey, I appreciate the effort. There was some effort. Quickly, Flash announced on Wednesday, main eventing collision on the Saturday, and they spent the time to alter the graphic in between. To be like, oh, it could be Willow or it could be Maya. It's like, well, we know it's not. A different place might not have even bothered to make this edit, but you're trying to sell me on this main event. All that said, it didn't matter at all how obvious the winner was when these two are this damn good together. Willow pounced and swung, but also showed a different side of her offense, stretching Maya on the mat. Turns out I was just in an ad break and was invested enough I didn't realise. But the point stands, Willow's got it in her to fend off Monet in that ground submission game too. A flash final five after that break, World got to swing in her flurry of kicks, with Willow halting with the odd slam of power. Nightingale dropkick off Brett's rope and Cannonball swung into the champion's favour, till the silly lady started climbing up with her back to Maya. Sunset flip powerbomb and fallaway slam bridge, all beautiful, to the nearest of near-fall kickouts. I swear the way that Willow did it was she just didn't kick out at the three and just trusted the ref to count it as super close. It's like, I'm not even going to try and time this at kicking out at the three. I will kick out slightly after, but I'm trusting you, ref, that you realise what I'm doing. Roll-ups quick and fast. AEW wants to deliver a close, respectful contest. You know it's going to be ending in a roll-up. Back and forth till Willow got the angle to keep Maya down. And you get 1 minute to celebrate because we're off air before you can even have your respectful handshake. In terms of like the champion showing respect to Maya. Maya gets lifted up a little bit having danced with the champion. It's a thing you literally just did on Ring of Honor last night using Bandido for Nick Wayne. Kind of repeated it here with Willow and Maya, but you don't have time. So you don't get to see the handshake. But yeah, I really enjoyed this main event. For me, a good proof that I am into a match is that I don't realise we are in a break. Because quite often you can just sense that, okay, we're slowing right down. But I immediately treated it as like a character note for Willow. I didn't even realise what we were doing. So that's a good note. I was that invested. Also good to see that Willow with somebody for the future in Maya, they have good in chemistry as well. Because this was just a taster. This wasn't the full thing. And of course Willow wins to go to a match with Mercedes. I still do truly believe that over the last few weeks, whilst the men's world title has wobbled, the women's world title has just found its stride. It's just found its characters. Been able to coast the last couple of weeks. The Mexico show was obviously like a big trios match, but last week brought in a great little character note of the staying smiling. Which is what I mean by the Will Ospreay Kenny Omega thing. It doesn't really feel like we've seen those different perspectives in a good way in the last couple of weeks. Mostly, I guess, because Kenny Omega's promo last week just fell completely flat. But last week we got to see Willow's reply to the smiling thing. Here, this week we got to see Mercedes' reasoning for it. Feels like everything is set up for them to be able to deliver such a classic match at Wembley. And it's Tony Khan, so you don't have to worry about him giving them time because he gives folk too much time. Normally how it works. Just remember, Tony, you've got to hard out, otherwise you'll be paying thousands in pounds in fines if you don't get out there. Anyway, that brings me to the end of the show for this week. This is the calm before the storm. Just a few final attempts to get you invested in the characters in the matches, setting up those lower card matches as well. Whatever whatever the trios match is going to be, like lower rung stuff, a casino gauntlet as well, but you've also got all your big title matches all built up. In the penultimate shows before we get to Glasgow, having Darby Allin blown up amongst the pyro is a promise, but I don't know how well they're going to keep in Wembley. But yeah, they somehow managed to put the show together without me being like massively amped for it. I'm more invested in certain matches. I'm more looking forward to watching the show, that experience of it, rather than being extremely excited or whatever. But anyway, this time next week, I will be talking about the Wembley show, talking about All In, so I'm looking forward to that. With that said, thank you for listening, liking, engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciated, never take it for granted. Again, I'll be back this time next week to talk about All In. So with that, I bid you adieu. Ta-ra, chaps, go to London, innit? Ta-ra. Warning Birds allowed to be offensively British. I guess that's how I sign off now. Alright, Gavner, off I piss. Anyway, ta-ra, ta-ra.